In this video, we're going to show you to install a fog light set on your Toyota Tundra located in your front bumper. We're going to use our 22mm socket, loosen and remove our lug nuts. Sometimes the center cap can pop off, but most of the time that will stay on there. Grab that wheel and remove it. And with the wheel removed from the vehicle, the center cap itself is held in place by these retainer tabs, and they simply pop in around the wheel itself. So you can install this afterwards. With the front wheel removed, we're going to come underneath here. There are two 10mm bolts you want to loosen and remove. Let's move to inside the wheel well. Now inside the wheel well here, we have the lower splash guard we need to remove. On the inside here, there would normally be a plastic push pin, but ours is missing, so we'll have to source a replacement for that. But if you come to the outside section here, right by the bumper, there are two inserts. We're gonna use our trim tool. Now, these can be brittle and they may break, so you wanna be careful. Go ahead and grab the liner and pull it out. Now once you have that little plastic wheel well liner removed, you're going to access the cover right here. Now this here is a dummy filler for a vehicle that does not have factory fog lights installed. If you have factory fog lights, you're going to probably remove them the same way. You're just going to have a bulb here and a harness onto the side. Now we're going to go up here, up in the upper corner here, say roughly about 11 o'clock, there's a tab up here. Now you can use a screwdriver and you're going to go between the tab on the bumper and the fog light filler, and you're going to pry and pull towards you. Now there are two other tabs. There's one over about 3 o'clock over here on the side, and then there's one down below at about 7 o'clock down here. So you're going to pull this out, and you just want to kind of maneuver this around to pull those tabs out, and then remove the cover from the vehicle. And you pull that right out through the front side there. You can see the tabs. There's one right here. There's one over here, and then obviously the one up top. Now here we have the new component with the yellow fog light assembly and the bucket. Now here's the tab that we had just pried against to pop out. Here's the other tab here, and then there's one over here. So when we install this unit, we're gonna feed this back in and push it into place and lock it in. And this component can be used, if you actually have factory fog lights, you can replace the whole unit, the lens and the trim bucket, with this unit and just plug it in. I'm going to feed this in. And there it is. Our fog light bucket and light are locked in. Now that we have our light installed right here, we want to go ahead and repeat this process for the other side. And if you have factory fog lights, you simply want to go ahead and grab that harness and go ahead and plug that in, and you should be all set. Install your fender liner. Now our truck does not have the switch up inside the vehicle, so we're going to install a fog light on the passenger side and then install our wiring harness. Now we have our wiring harness laid out here, and down at the main section here, this is going to be installed by the battery area. Here is your relay, a fuse, and a power. So we're going to run that to the battery. And if you follow the wiring harness down, you have these two main ones that are in the sheathing. These go right to your fog lights, left and right hand side. In the middle, we have a separate ground, so we can hook this up to the chassis, under the hood, to the battery, whatever you want to hook that ground to. And then our third line here, we have 12-volt power, ground, and then this here plugs into the back of your switch. And this will be up under the dash area. This will be on the dash, so this will be right in that general area. Now we went ahead and we have everything kind of ready to go. We have our relay right here, our fuse, and our battery power here. This is gonna get set up right on the backside of our radiator support. Now next we have our two fog light harnesses here, and we're gonna feed this through the backside, right behind this cover and out where the AC tube comes out for a condenser. So let's go ahead and feed that right through the back side. Pull this one through, and then we'll feed the other one through. Wiggle that past the plastic here. Now this one here, the short one is going to go to the driver's side. The longer one is going to go to the passenger side. And what we're going to do is we're just going to drop this down, and we're going to run these after Or we can just pull it down behind the bumper area, prep all that later on for a nice, clean installation. This portion of the wiring harness, we have the thin ground wire, and it comes down to the harness connector right here for the switch, power and ground. This is gonna get run along the driver's side fender for now. So just kind of like set that up over here. Now we can go ahead and install our relay. We're gonna anchor that. And make sure I pull my harness down and through. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna anchor our relay right to the back of the support here using a self-tapping screw. You can simply use a zip tie or something. This does not have to be anchored via a screw, but that's where we're going to place ours. The fuse is readily accessible here if we need to use it or replace it. Our relay is secured. Off of that relay, we have the 12-volt power source right here. It has a little eyelet on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to get a pre-measurement here, and we can go ahead and neaten up this wire. We can wrap this up and take a small little wire tie here. I'm going to zip tie that there, tie it up. Going to cut off the excess. And that way there, we can just run this over to our positive on the battery. Now we're gonna wait to install our power at the very end. We're gonna run all of the wiring for everything else, and then we're gonna finish up by installing that and test everything out. So just set that aside for now. Let's now go ahead and run the wires down to our fog lights and get those plugged in. Now at this point, let's go ahead and run our wires. Now the driver's side wire, you're just gonna tuck that down, and you want to push that down to where the general area is of that fog light. The passenger side, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to run it underneath the brace here, the center brace, and kind of tuck that down over somewhere where you can gain access to it through the wheel well. Now we're going to go over to the passenger side wheel well and connect that harness, and then we'll connect the driver's side. We're going to reach up and grab that harness here and bring that on over. Let's go ahead and plug this into our fog light bulb. All right, now we can use some wire ties here. I want to go ahead and secure this. Now on your vehicle, there may have been a bolt or something going through this. Ours didn't have it. But basically what you want to do is go ahead and secure that wire up and out of the way. And we have a little spot up here in our radiator support. We're simply going to do the same thing with a wire tie, run that through that little hole and bring our harness up into it. Going to zip that up in there, and we're going to snip off the excess. Now once again, if you have the factory fog lights and you're just upgrading it with the yellow style that we have here, you can take your factory harness and just plug that right in. And we're over on the driver's side. We have a much shorter wire to contend with. But let's go ahead and install that onto our bulb. And we still want to go ahead and anchor this. So any of this excess wire here, if you want to, you can loop it if you want. And we're going to use our tie to anchor it here. And our goal is basically just to keep that harness from dangling down. And that just keeps it nice and neat, tucked up out of the way. Cut off that excess. Going to install our splash guard here. Our buttons pretty much crumbled apart, so we had to source some replacements. Going to install these here. Then we'll move to the inside and install the retainer button over here. Let's install our 2 screws on the bottom. Repeat for the passenger side. Now our wire itself running over to the passenger side, you could probably leave it and let it dangle, but we like to keep things nice and neat. So take a tie strap, and we're going to utilize this beam right here. We're going to run a tie strap through it, bring our harness up. Now we're going to do this on both sides. Just going to anchor it up, nice and easy. Keep it up out of the way, snip off the excess. And then we're going to simply go to the other side over here. I'm going to bring that wire over, and we're going to do the same thing over here. There we go, something that simple. So our fog light harness is installed. That just keeps that up and out of the way, nice and neat. And we have our single long ground wire right here. Now, if you want to, and you have the availability or another eyelet or something, go ahead and cut this wire down. But if you want to, how we're gonna do it is just tuck our ground wire down along the side of the battery. We are gonna hook it up to the battery. What we're gonna do, just like we did on the excess positive, let's go ahead and loop this up nice and neat. Go ahead and secure that. I'm gonna cut off that tail. Remember, it's all about keeping it nice and neat. And what we'll do is we'll simply, when the time comes, I'm gonna snake this down inside here, and we're just gonna connect our ground eyelet right here to the bolt. And we're just gonna anchor that there. So this ground and our positive power will be hooked up at the very end, and that'll be when we go ahead and test everything. So at this point, we'll just leave this on the top. Now let's go ahead and prepare to run the wires into the cab of the vehicle. Now our next step is to go ahead and work this harness into the interior of the vehicle. If you follow this through, we have the power and ground, and keep on going, and right here we have a bullet connector here. This is the only wire that needs to go through the firewall. So simple enough, we're going to disconnect this. We can leave this one here in the engine compartment. We're going to take this whole harness, bring it inside the vehicle, and we just have to get this yellow wire through. In order to do that, there's a rubber grommet down just to the right of our brake booster down there. And we're going to use a special tool. This is a tool to help us feed a wire through. So we have to feed this through the rubber grommet to the interior of the vehicle. We're going to install this bullet connector into here or attach it, and then we're going to pull it back through into the engine compartment where we can connect this. Inside on the driver's side floor compartment, we need to remove our sill plate. There's a little nut, plastic nut right here. Normally you can just spin that off counterclockwise and then grab this sill plate and just kind of pull it out a little bit. Now on the main sill plate here beside the door, you're gonna get underneath and just gently pull up. Separating this. Go ahead and set that down. Tuck it off to the side. We're gonna use our tool here to push through the rubber grommet. I want to make sure that if you're using a tool like this here, that you're not going to interfere with the wire harness going through to the interior of the vehicle. So double check on the inside of the car. Make sure that you can get a tool through this to puncture. Push that through to the inside of the car. Then we'll install our wires into that, or place the wires into it, even tape them, and then we'll pull the wires back through into the engine compartment. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach our red power wire and our yellow wire to this tool. Let's see if we can get this red one in here with it. Now in most cases you can just feed that wire through the hollow tube. So now that we've fed the wires through here, we're going to go back into the engine compartment. We're going to pull those wires up a little bit further. We can now remove our tool. All we have to do is simply grab this, pull this out. Now that we have our wires here, we're just going to rest them up on top here. Let's now remove our knee panel here. There's a 10mm bolt here, and one over on the other side. Pull that panel straight out, dislodging the plastic retainers. Just drop that down a little bit. Now that we have the panel out, we have a dead panel right here. If you reach around the back side, there's a clip on the top and bottom. If you just pinch them together right here, it pops that right out. You can take your new fog light switch right here. Depends on how you want to install it. Line that up, push it in. It'll lock in. Off, on, off. Now what we need to do is grab the green connector, pull it up behind the panel, and connect it to the back side of our switch. So we're able to run our harness up above this panel here, because that's where our switch is going to be when we install the dash again. Go ahead and line this up, insert it into the back of our switch, and snap it in. Now we have our ground wire here. We want to take a self-tapping screw, Going to put it through. Now this panel itself has a high spot and then it has a recessed spot strip right here. We're going to put our screw in the recessed area so it does not interfere with the plastic on our panel. I'll make sure that's good and tight. And our ground wire will run right inside that groove there. Now we can go ahead and put our panel back into place. There's 4 tabs that need to insert into the lower portion of the dash, 2 on each side. So I'm going to bring our panel up, line these up. Install our 2 bolts in the bottom. Get those started by hand. Then we'll go ahead and snug them down. I'm going to take our sill plate. I'm going to slide this down and into place. Now there was a stud over here that we need to line this up with. Line that up. Once you have that lined up, we're going to go ahead and work the sill plate in and work this through on the driver's side. Lock in your sill plate. Then we can install our plastic knob. Once you have that all set, go ahead and twist on that little knob there. And then let's move back to underneath the hood. Go ahead and tuck your wire down. Run this underneath. I want it to be just nice and clean. So go ahead and snake that through. Tuck that down and around. And then we'll run that through and we're going to connect it to the bullet connector. Make sure that the plastic sleeve covers both ends. Go ahead and just tuck this down. Nice and neat and out of the way. Now a red wire that's coming through the firewall needs to be hooked up to a 12-volt power source, usually an ignition switch on in the vehicle running. And you can do that up underneath the dash if you'd like to do so. What we found was that inside this fuse box right here, by opening this up, we found the factory 15 amp fuse for factory fog lights. So what we were able to do was we sourced a jumper wire here. And what this does is it goes in place of that 15. We'll take that 15 out and put it with this 15. And then we're going to use the bullet connector with the supplied jumper wire from our kit. We're going to connect it and we're going to run it out the side of the box to that wire. So it has a secondary factory fuse in line with it. So we found our fog light right here, fuse. It's a 15 amp. So there's 4 fuses in a row. It's a third one. So if you follow down right here, it is our 15 amp right here. Pull that out. So our jumper wire has a mini 15 amp fuse installed, so we won't need this one here. We're going to take our bullet connector, press it into place. We take this here, go ahead and install our little jumper here. I'm going to tuck this wire down. And well, someone else had already been in here and made a little notch in the side of the case here. I'm going to grab our cover here, line that up. Good to install the cover. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect that red wire to this wire. Now we're going to use a supplied Scotch lock connector here to connect these 2 wires. Now that we have that connected, just lock that in, and then we'll tuck the wire down behind. Once again, make sure it's tucked away nice and neat. And we use our 10 mil here. We're going to loosen up both ground and our positive. Now our positive side is an eyelet, so we need to go ahead and remove this nut completely. Let's go ahead and snug this down. Make sure that terminal is snug and that wire is good, tucked away. As for our ground, it's more of an open eyelet, so it's going to be a little bit easier for us to do that one. Get that ground wire installed there. Snug down that terminal, make sure that that ground wire is also tight. Go ahead and tuck that down. Nice and neat, out of the way. Let's go ahead and test our fog light operation. Now we've completed our fog light installation and operation. Okay, line that wheel up, set that in place. And we're going to get all of our lug nuts started by hand. Once you have these started, you can go ahead and snug them down. Take your cap, line that up, and just tap it on. Now, when torquing down your lug nuts here, if you have the steel wheel, torque it to 154 foot-pounds. If you have aluminum wheels, it's 97 foot-pounds. You want to do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.